Dalhousie, welcome to another edition of Mawio'mi. I'm your host, Jim Richardson.
And I'm your co-host, Terry Richardson. Today we're very excited to have with us a couple of great guests, bro.
We are, boy, I tell you, we got Dean Vicaire. Dean is Mr. Mi'kmaq across the country. He's also former leader in Listiguj, in policing, so what an opportunity for conversation. Then we got to look at Leigh Walsh. Leigh, town councillor, you know, Heron Bay, musician, airport authority.
Exciting stuff to talk about for sure.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So today we're going to lead off with Dean Vicaire, and as you stated, Dean was used to be the chief of Listiguj First Nation, and now he's the CEO of our organization called MTI. So Dean, welcome to our programming here at Mawio'mi Gathering Place.
Well, and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited. I think a lot of family and friends are probably a heck of a lot more excited to watch the show this evening, so I'm just glad to be here. And thank you for having me.
Well, Dean, we're excited. I mean, you know, you've got the pulse of what's happening with all the chiefs across the country, certainly across New Brunswick anyway. And I know one of the chiefs sitting here has certainly been able to fill us in, but not to the extent that probably you can fill us in.
Sure.
So it's great having you, Dean. So I think, you know, to start off, can you tell us a little bit about MTI and the organization itself and what its role is?
Yeah, absolutely, gentlemen. I mean, a mission statement is projected throughout all of Mi'kmaq, and it's an Illinois leadership body that promotes and asserts our Aboriginal and treaty rights and protects our people through a very respectful way from an educational, cultural, social, and economic platform, where ultimately leadership, along with the staff of roughly 45 now, are there to protect and hold all levels of government accountable, while at the same time building relationships with other nations.
That's awesome.
Dean, we always hear the word rights-based. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a nonprofit rights-based organization, and rights, not in particular individual rights, but collective rights, that are upheld by our treaties, that is supported and under the guidance of our elders and our Indigenous knowledge holders, and under the direction and guidance from leadership, our 9 Mi'kmaq chiefs.
You know, Dean, when you look at, you talk about the Mi'kmaq, and I think a lot of people, don't realize how big actually Mi'kmaq is, right? I mean, if you look at, it's not only New Brunswick, obviously, right?
That's right.
Quebec, you've got Listiguj, Gaspé, you've got Nova Scotia, and now you have Newfoundland and PEI as well.
That's right.
So all of Atlantic Canada is basically Mi'kmaq, right?
Yeah.
That's the base of our people. And I think one of the things that we find very challenging, and you can attest to that, Dean, is dealing with government on all different levels, right?
Yes.
So on the provincial government, what do you say? What do you think in New Brunswick are some of the major challenges that we're facing?
Well, first and foremost, and I'll cut right to the point here, the current leadership and the Premier poses the largest challenge. How does that look? Despite the fact that there are little to no direct dialogue with the Premier, and as you know, Chief, it's a challenge. But at the same time, as a resilient people, we've learned to scale that wall, go around it, go dig a hole underneath it. It doesn't stop us. As you know, many proponents who choose to follow our MRIA process, and Mi'kmaq Rights Impact Assessment process, will in the end benefit from a win-win-win situation. What does that mean? Well, a win situation for them as a profit business, a win situation for our nation, and a win situation for the people that we all represent. It's not just the Mi'kmaq people that we are really there to support, but as you've always toted and shared with everyone as a getting rid of the northern defeatist attitude. I would like to say under the leadership up here in every facet, I like to say it's long gone, or at least on its way out the door. And it's high time that the North be heard, and it's high time that our individual communities up here especially have a voice.
So Dean, I mean, you've got a role here dealing with the provincial government in charge of the organization representing all the Mi'kmaq chiefs. How does that differ, for example, with your role as a chief in Quebec, dealing with the Quebec government?
Yeah, so quite often in Listiguj, and as a former chief, it was always dealing with a two-headed monster, so to speak, right? You have the local municipal government there is one thing, But dealing with the federal government and then the provincial government in Quebec, where they view themselves as an enclave within the country, to say that they believe they're their own country and they function as such, right? So Listiguj has come a long way in terms of dealing with that. You know, no one ever wants to fight, and Chief Terry can relate to this as a military background. No one ever wants to fight a war on two fronts. But that's something Listiguj have always done. And, you know, I think we've come a long way because of that. And what we've achieved just proves the, you know, proof is in the pudding, so to speak. Welcome anyone and everyone to come visit Listiguj, and you'll see the progress that is there. Now, in the province of New Brunswick, they're currently fighting that same two-headed monster. It's one thing to have leadership together, which it is. You know, the 9 communities in many facets, in all respects, are together. That's not to say that it's all perfect and harmony, but you know, with respect to the individual communities, it's vital that they are together as a Mi'kmaq nation, and that's clear in the mission statement and the current literature that we have out there with the title assertion. But tackling, and I have to use the word tackling because I really wish it was a level playing field, a level table to say where the Premier and ministers can sit down and have a productive conversation. Is that happening? In some facets, Jim, it is, but in many, it's not, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you know, I think that's the big problem we have, is that you've got two ways to go: either negotiation, litigation.
Or litigation.
Yeah.
So what road do you want to take? Well, obviously you want to take the negotiation when possible, because that's going to give you the it creates less bad feelings amongst everybody. But if you have to go to litigation route, I mean, as First Nations, we have litigation in our favor. So I don't understand why this government doesn't understand that. You know, sometimes it's a really challenge when you're talking to them to say, look, you're forcing us to go the road of litigation, but we've already got the Supreme Court on our side, and these findings have already, if you go right across from coast to coast, you look at what's happening in British Columbia, I mean, it's there. It's how can you say it's not going to happen? It's almost like they have blinders on and they're only looking at the next year, 2 years.
You know, he should be concerned, he and the government should be concerned about economic development. If you go to litigation route, it creates uncertainty, you know, and investment doesn't go where there's uncertainty. You know, if there's litigation, you know, First Nations are going to, you know, certainly be adverse to any sort of development. Raising injunctions raises the cost of development, puts an undue burden financially on investors, and they know that. Yeah. So, you know, working that route is in favor of negotiation, never mind litigation.
I think you touched on a real good point too, Dean, when you said treaties, right? And understanding those treaties, I think, is the problem that we have with the average person, right? Yep. Because the average person says, well, why do the First Nations want everything? Why do they? We don't want everything. We just want to be included and involved in development.
Absolutely.
For so many years, you know, you listen to some of our elders and they tell us, you know, we've watched the big trucks drive by with all the materials and we've never been able to take any advantage of any of those opportunities. All we're asking is for an opportunity to be involved. And it's proven across Canada that when First Nations is involved, the economy grows even better.
Absolutely. You know, despite the fact that we know this, the majority of New Brunswickers know this, the majority of the inhabitants of Turtle Island know this. This is our pie. We know this, but we just simply want a piece, our rightful piece of that pie, to ultimately push forward the agenda for all of us. We're all cut from the same cloth here. None of us are going anywhere. But to speak to your point about litigation, the saying is, if you don't mitigate, you better be prepared to litigate.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know, it's unfortunate. For the life of me, I do not understand why they just refuse to acknowledge, you know, our proven and asserted rights. I'm really at a loss, and I'm not one for to be at a loss for words, but I think it's just protecting. You know, change is usually feared, and then change is resisted, because change is usually ugly at first. Yeah. But when change happens, it tends to turn out to be a very beautiful thing. It's just that time needs to happen. People need to come and go, but that has to be supported. And if it's supported, I mean, we see time and time again, we need to look out in BC, look out in the middle part of the province. I mean, they elected an Aboriginal premier, for God's sake. I mean,
Manitoba, yeah.
You know, is that what it's going to take here? I don't know, but.
Well, you know, you mentioned BC, and that's an interesting kind of situation there, and I think of it largely from the point of view of the most recent settlement with respect to the Haida Gwaii.
Yeah.
Aboriginal rights. I mean, you know, fear-mongering here in the province on the part of the government, Higgs saying, well, land claims, et cetera, they're going to take all your houses, you're going to lose your land, et cetera. Well, what they did in Haida Gwaii was coordinate with everybody, collaborate. The municipalities, such as Queen Charlotte City, et cetera, have their own municipal government, et cetera. But as it relates to the Crown land, you know, the First Nations have an Aboriginal right on that, and then they share the decision-making within the spirit of, you know, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. So I guess what I'm saying is leadership requires courage.
Absolutely.
You know, in this day and age.
Yeah, and you see it in some of the municipalities. We see it up north here, you know, Dalhousie, Campbellton, Charlotte. Why? It's pretty evident that we are cut from the same cloth here.
Yeah.
You know, we have the Acadian people, the Scottish people, you know, all makes are together here. Why? Out of necessity.
Yeah.
But the further down the province you go, you start to see and feel that divide. Why is that? Well, you know, old money, old politics, I think plays a big part in it. But, you know, in the end, if that's what it's going to take, you know, to make that change, then certainly people are going to have to step up and just.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, when you talk about the title assertion, you talked a little bit about that earlier, Dean. You know, you look at the Listiguj, who have already filed their land claim. I think, you know, the one error they might have done is they took the leaseholders into the mix. So now they're dealing with 7 leaseholders who are in the land, whereas the Mi'kmaq approach, I think, is going to be more of one of going after the government and saying, you know, we're looking at, and it's not about taking anybody's land, like, which is what the premier is saying, right? I mean, that fear mongering is always going to be there, right? He tries, how do you get people? You put out false information and then people go against you, just like development and everything else.
Sorry, bro, just elaborate a little bit on leaseholders.
Well, leaseholders are like the individuals down south. It's more like the big forest companies, the big forest companies who have tracts of land, and most of it is in the southern part of the province,
Which is just given to them.
and which was just given, right, with no, you know, with royalties that are paid probably to the province, and that's the problem. I think is the, you know, it's easy to say that there's a whole bunch of natural resources that are still available, but there isn't. And for so many years, First Nations were denied any of that development, and I think that's what people have to understand is, you know, nobody picked where we wanted our communities to be.
Yeah,
It was the government who came and said, here's this land, and that's a reserve.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I kind of want to renege on my point earlier about having, you know, the communities up in this part of the province together. It is happening, and I see it. You know, we see it with Dieppe. Like, Dieppe is a shining example of a modern day mayor and council where they don't make a move without us. There's nothing about us without us. And they make that crystal clear. They invite us to their council meetings. We're there. I have some staff attend there, and that is, you know, a small but mighty process that I think will reverberate throughout that, that area of the province.
And that's a true form of reconciliation.
Absolutely.
You know, being inclusive, and this is the thing. You know, I think what we have to have is a government that, you know, unites as opposed to divide. I mean, you know, bring together the Anglophones, the Francophones, the Acadian, the new immigrants, the First Nations, all together. You know, that's not to say that in any government scenario that we're always going to get along and hug and, you know, but we agree to disagree and move on. But, you know, to get to that stage where we can agree to disagree is what we want. And my way or the highway is what this government is doing.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because for the life of me, we offer treaty education, okay? Personally offered it to him, to the ministers, whoever wanted it, in an hour, a day, a week, whatever you want. We'll come in person, virtually, whatever. And when you're told, well, why would I want that? Now, initially, I don't take that as an insult. You know, you think like, okay, he really does not understand why he should learn this or they should learn this. And that is unfortunate because that to your point earlier, gentlemen, about how is that going to change? Until it's embedded within the pedagogy of our education system, this will always be the fight. It's backwards. Where, you know, you should be instilling that education in all of us, you know, because we've done a heck of a lot more than make baskets. And
well, and I think, you know,
like the textbooks have showed.
Yeah, and you've hit it right on the button. You know, education is so important because we're only a young country. Canada's only a young country by
For sure.
world means, and you know, we have some bad history too. So you don't only preach your good stuff, you've got to preach the bad stuff too, because that's how you learn, right? But and I think that's what's not being done is what's been done in our country.
Well, Dean hit the nail on the head there. I mean, how many people know what a treaty is? And what's the definition of a treaty? And what does it mean that when you haven't signed a treaty? You know, I mean, these are things that require education and understanding before you can come together and understand where, you know, our history brings us and emotion brings us, you know.
And we've always said, you know, as First Nations, we've been here for hundreds of years. We're going to be here for hundreds of years more.
Yeah,
so, I mean, unlike other people who can sell their land, move away, and go to another province, First Nations in our communities, it's going to be for other First Nations living there.
You stay tuned. We're going to be right back with some more exciting conversation.
Well, welcome back to more of Mawio'mi Gathering Place. So, Dean, just to carry on with our conversation a little bit, I guess we have talked a little bit about bringing people together. You know, and we're seeing more of that within our First Nations and our municipalities, realizing that we have to work together and grow and face those challenges that we're facing financially, economically, and developing and working together. And I think that's something that we're seeing more of across the province. Would you agree with that with the First Nations?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, despite the fact that you have a government that likes to put a spin on dividing us, and the media for that matter, putting a spin on dividing us, as you know, Chief, and I can assure anyone out there in the listening world and the audience that we are together. We haven't been more unified. And again, to Jim's point earlier, it doesn't mean it's all hugs and kisses all the time. But I don't think it should be that way either, you know. There are 9 communities there, 9 nations that have a unique perspective on things. While there are many common denominators within the 9 communities, each one of them have their own unique challenges and successes.
Yeah, and some of the things we've done together, I think, as communities, you know, a couple of projects I can think of, PlayX, you know, the investment in PlayX. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and as well as the windmill development in Sussex, where we have 9 Mi'kmaq bands that are going to be involved in that.
Yeah, for sure. So with PlayX, it's quite exciting. Innovation at its best, right? The young Dustin Bowers, who is, you know, literally created something from scratch in his garage with a friend while working out west, and seeing the colossal waste of material, turning that into an innovative product that is you know, more sustainable than concrete, for goodness sake. Like, that is amazing. So
Lego building blocks.
Yeah, Lego building blocks. And I believe the company Lego did reach out to him. But all that to say, it's very careful where myself and our staff, bring forward these proponents and bring forward to leadership these ideas, because you don't want to ever be viewed as a car salesman, right? So we provide an opportunity, let leadership digest that, and ultimately make a decision. And with PlayX, for example, that was a no-brainer. You were one of the more vocal ones at the table to say, goodness, let's jump on this, because if we don't, I will, I think is what you said.
Yeah, and if you look at the development now, I mean, they just recently in Ottawa had a anti-plastic big summit.
Yep.
And I think that is where you see, you know, companies like PlayX having a role that are going to play in that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he has huge, you know, conglomerates that are investing, DuPont, and, you know, you can go on, Corning and that sort of thing. But to get to the windmill in Sussex, I mean, you know, you try to know everything, and it's very difficult for anyone, especially in this position. I've learned to know a little about a lot. I suppose vice versa. And in the ripe old age that I'm now reaching, I've learned to be interested instead of trying to be interesting. So, you know, to listen to leadership on how that they're developing wind and the challenges that are coming along with that. In my time as leader in Listiguj, we did sign that a large 150 megawatt wind farm, and you know, working with Jean Charest at the time, you know, I whispered to him saying that, you know, your career is over after signing this, and he acknowledged that, and I don't think we've heard of him since. But you know, it takes guts, right?
Yeah.
And innovative people to really make that change. So, you know, what's going on in Sussex and what can and should and would, you know, be going on in the other communities, I think is long overdue in wind development.
Yeah, we're excited here in our region.
And clean
too.
energy.
Yeah, with clean energy and windmills too, for that matter. But Dean, you have 2 young people, young kids, you know, and looking forward to their future. I mean, what do you see as being ideal in moving the reconciliation file forward?
It's a scary world, Jim, right?
Yeah.
It is scary. I have a 19-year-old who's in computer science, and he'll navigate his way through IT, because IT is not going anywhere. And I have a 6 and a 4-year-old who, you know, that's where I fear the most, what are they going to inherit? What are they going to look back at and see, you know, what legacy are we leaving for them?
Yeah.
And that's you know, yet to be seen, really. You know, we all understand where, you know, climate change is going in some respects, not
Yeah.
in all. But you got to be a fool, like, not to see it and feel it, right? But that's going. So where we push the with smart energy, you know, we're all proponents of it. You know, the Aboriginal people are stewards of the land, and it's in our mission statement where we're there to protect it. We're not against innovation. We're not against development.
Yeah.
But goodness, we're going to do it in a sustainable manner. You know, Mother Earth is not, elders tell me, she's not crying. Many would say she's crying, like she's screaming. And she's upset, and, you know, and just take a look around the world and what's happening. So with clean energy, I think the technology is still being developed. You know, many Aboriginal leaders and First Nation communities are accepting that. Now, what does that look like? I can assure you, 20 years ago, you could not have a conversation about nuclear energy with anyone in the community. Now you have elders going to Point Lepreau, going on the tour, and really like awakening, saying, goodness, look how they're doing it in a respectful manner. Of course, there are still fears and there are still realities faced with that, but we got to do something, because
We were still too close to the atomic bomb explosions in the Second World War, I think. But really, I see a shift too, and I know the brother here has been quite active on the nuclear side and promoting nuclear as a way forward. But on the other hand, you know, we've got to look at you know, the bounty that was given to us at one time that we no longer have. You know, I think about in our territory, for example, looking at the Bay of Chaleur. On every beach, you could dig clams, and as a kid, you stand out and you sell your clam. You can see salmon jumping, you can see fish jumping. You go fishing, well, you come back with a string of fish, no problem. You see deer in the meadow. Very seldom you see that now. You know, so we've got to, you know, protect what we've got and hopefully bring it back, you know, and we are stewards for Mother Earth, as you pointed out, and it's a challenge. And sometimes, you know, we have to be forceful with things, and you were forceful, or your community was forceful, certainly as it relates to the salmon war there you had up in Listiguj, right?
Oh goodness, yeah, I was a young boy there, and you know, like many protective mothers, you know, they did what they had to do, and in our case, my mom took us away from the community, and you know, it was a trying time to say the least. But when things settled down, we came back. You know, being, I say a former educator, but I was a teacher in the New Brunswick school system for about 6 years. And, you know, to teach that or to inspire learning within not just the native students, but everyone about what happened, it's a real eye-opener. And it's something, again, if we're doomed to not remember, it's almost doomed to repeat it. And I can assure you that, you know, in Listiguj and seeing the other communities, you know, not just the size, like Elsipogtok's very strong.
Yeah.
But then you have Pabino, who's, you know, progressive, and to see Ukbiganjik there, I was blessed to be a health director there, filling a beautiful brand new building with professional people for the care, welfare, and safety, security of those members. And to see that immerse, I've always viewed Ukbiganjik as small but mighty.
Yeah.
You know, and just throughout the province, you have Fort Folly and Indian Island and on, you know, Escanobinichi. All 9 communities are unique, as I mentioned earlier, but the strength and resilience of all their people is just amazing. And I'm so blessed and honored to be part of this. I get to go into the communities where, you know, 8 years ago I had no clue where it was, 1, and 2, who were in there, and now to, you know, I'm blessed to be part of the fabric of the community in some respects. You know, it's quite often I'll go visit a community, I'll hang out at the gas station, and you know, someone will say, oh yeah, you know, when Nagil, like, who are you? And I'll explain myself. Oh, you're the boss, so why don't you give my sister a job? Like, well, that sort of thing.
Happens, yeah.
But it's a good point, you know, that the resilience of First Nations that have been there for, you know, we've endured so many rough times, you know, the addictions issues, you know, sometimes people always tell me, well, you know, we have addictions in our communities too. Yeah, but I think in our First Nation communities, because we're so small and we're isolated, that it looks bigger than what it is sometimes. And that's a challenge, really.
Yeah, you notice it more, and that's one of the challenges with the Chiefs, and I guess probably, you know, if you look at the challenges that are before the organization representing the Chiefs, what are the ones, let's say 1 to 5 or something like that, that you see as some of the key challenges moving forward?
Yeah, you know what I mean, like I'm certainly, I don't know it all, and I will not even pretend to, but what I see, as I mentioned earlier about some of the challenges and the common denominators are, you know, language.
That's a big one.
Because without it,
It's a big one.
You
without it,
lose your
gentlemen,
identity. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
all we have to do is look around, you know.
Yeah.
And you have the addiction issues, of course, you know, based upon many reasons, you know, intergenerational trauma. You know, I remember being brought up and told it was a weakness, you know, but is it? You know, I have a 19-year-old who never tried it, never tried drugs, never tried alcohol, not even tried. And I'm so blessed to say that, because that is an anomaly.
It is really in this day and age,
It
yeah.
is, you know. And one for three, and you know, I only hope and pray that the other two are in the same mindset, you know. But you have those conversations with them. So, language, number one, because without it, gentlemen, everything else I'm about to say or could say is just, you know, part and parcel of that.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, economic development. You know, it's interesting though. You know, I to see the strengths in some of the communities and what they target, and what some others don't, you know, and what they prioritize. It's interesting because, rightfully so, they should be doing what's best for their members. And quite often I'll tell my staff, you know, don't take offense to this, but MTI will never be a priority for a chief, because it shouldn't. You know, it should be their community first. And then combined, then MTI is there to support in any way, shape, or form, you know, any and all communities. So it's interesting. But yeah, there are many challenges, but you know, we participated in a retreat last week with my staff, and you know, you have a talking circle, and 99.9% of the time it turns into a grieving process. And why? Because it's needed. But then you have people who recognize that and try to share the positive things and the successes, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
lots to go on.
Yeah, I think MTI has done a great job, you know, on the right side of it, rights-based, and making those issues. And sometimes it's hard because you cross that line sometimes to the
Yep.
other areas that are a little more touchy, right, for the
Yep,
communities.
100%.
So it's a fine line that MTI has to walk sometimes. And I always say it's
I
difficult.
always say kudos to Dean too, because I mean, he shows solid leadership in there, and it's hard navigating that path with
is.
all of the chiefs, right?
It
I mean,
is.
like for example, in our particular case, both my brother and I are ex-military, so we're action-oriented, right? So we bring a different perspective, and it's not necessarily the Aboriginal way.
Yep.
The Aboriginal way is a little bit more laid back and understanding, gaining understanding, appreciate, where we go more in an entrepreneurial way. But we're seeing more educated youth coming out now with that mindset, right? If you look at the youth in the universities now and the entrepreneurship and so on that's going on with Aboriginal youth, you know, I'm very positive at what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I made a career of not just building bridges, but making sure they're clean and clear, you know, so I'll always
And not burning them down.
And certainly not burning them down, no. But I mean, the idea of having, walking that fine line, so to speak, and I call it a delicate dance. You know, we're not there to service delivery. We're not there for economic development. We're there for economy building and support. Now, whatever it is that Papineau or any other community of the 9 prioritize, we're there to assist in any way. We're humble to say, well, we're also going to step out of your way. And by that I mean, being from Listiguj, we have MMS,
Yeah.
the Big Mawio'mi Secretariat.
Yeah.
And Listiguj is, the size of Listiguj can't always wait
That's right.
for MMS to move along. Just like El Sabuktuk cannot wait always, you know, with their title assertion and all that sort of thing. And you know what? It speaks to nothing about the size, because there's sometimes Papineau can't wait, and that's okay. It's okay. And I think it's important to communicate that, not just to leadership, but to my staff, and way more importantly, gentlemen, the members that we all represent.
Oh, I
Because
agree,
this the nation is
100%.
why we're here. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. You know, we're at the end of the dying seconds here, Dean, and I mean, I think that there's so much to talk about. Certainly the land
absolutely.
claim issue and the way forward, bro. I mean, you know, there's lots of
Yeah, and we
subject
appreciate
matter there
for
related to
sure.
the.
And we will have you back, Dean. I think, you know, as this title assertion claim moves forward, it'd be great to have another discussion, bring a little bit more emphasis on that. But you know, you've been doing a great job with MTI, and we appreciate you taking your time to come on to our little show here that we put
it's
on.
an honor.
It's really appreciated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
thank you
sure.
so
And,
much, gentlemen.
you know, and you're traveling back and forth all the time, you know, and you get to know our territory. And I'm glad that you dropped by for picking up gas, by the way.
Oh yes, for sure. You let a secret out here, but that's fine, gentlemen. It's an
We'll
honor.
be right back.
Welcome back to Mawio'mi Gathering Place, and in this segment we're very fortunate to have with Mr. Leigh Walsh, all the way up from northern New Brunswick in Dalhousie, councillor of one of the councillors from the town of Dalhousie, or should I say it's now
Heron Bay.
Heron
Bay.
Bay.
Bay de Heron.
The Bay de Heron. It's so nice to have you here, Leigh, and thank you
Yes.
for joining us. I guess
Thank
you know some of the things we wanted to talk about. I guess we'll jump right in.
Sure.
You know, from your perspective, you're involved in a lot of stuff.
Yes.
I know. I always see you up there. I see you on social media.
Yes.
With a lot of singing and a lot of doing that
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
stuff, but a lot of involvement as well with the Legion up there.
Yes.
And I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about that and some of the stuff that you've been doing up there to keep the Legion alive. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Leigh, as you know, my brother and I are both veterans, and we really appreciate the role that the Legion plays, you know, and the Legion is changing, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, our Legion, I've been there for the last 16 years. When I arrived there, I had seen one of our senior veterans. And I'm an associate member. My brother, my uncles, everyone was a veteran. And help was needed. So we turned around, had a group of people get together. I got some money. We painted the place. We had a dance, and we started to look forward to how are we going to survive. So we turned around, and this Chase the Ace really turned our situation.
Great money raiser, right?
Oh, big time. And of course, you heard recently,
Wow.
we had one of the biggest in Listiguj. So the winner took home $103,107.
And how much does that mean that the Legion gained in that?
Well, on our end,
Yeah.
we were lucky that evening. There were 4 cards left on the table. Now, mind you, if the person would have turned the card and it was a 2 of clubs, he would have won $12,600.
More.
No.
More.
Oh, more.
Not more.
That's it.
It's because the ace did not come out right away, right?
Oh.
So, the second card, the same thing would have happened, 20%. So another 12,600. So we were kind of happy that the ace was turned right away. So that way there we saved.
But I go back to the question though, Leigh.
Yes.
He gets $120,000. How much does the Legion get from that Chase the Ace
Oh,
exercise?
put it this way, we're sitting very pretty.
Good. That's good to hear.
You know,
yes.
Don't leave the secret out. You don't want to tell people about this.
No,
anyway.
no. And
People be knocking on your
we
door.
are starting back up come September.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So Leigh, in your capacity also as a councillor
Yes.
in the town,
Right.
what challenges are you facing up north in Dalhousie?
Well, right there now that we're united, we're 10 entities. You get to learn what you own, what you have, and there are a lot of the bylaws that have to be changed. And it's a learning curve. So there's lots to muster.
And do you find like I mean you know some of the in our talks here with Bell Bay because they
Yes.
basically amalgamated as well.
Right.
There was no money associated with that, right? The provincial government really didn't release any money. So
No.
do you find a financial burden there to try to figure out, you know, because now you're dealing with no money, but you have to make all these changes.
Exactly. Rebranding
is a cost.
is a cost, definitely. And we do get along well with our neighbors.
And then administratively too, right? I mean, you can
Oh,
only hire so
definitely.
many people. Like Bell Bay, for example, their big problem is
Yes.
being forced to translate everything.
That's
to the
right.
extent that they couldn't at some point because it was just they didn't have the manpower
Or
to do
the
it.
financial
Or the financial to hire
capability,
people to do it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that became a problem for them.
Yeah.
What about you know, we're old Dalhousie boys, so
Yes,
you know we're from that
yes.
region, so
Yeah.
our hearts will always be there.
Oh, yes,
always
for
tell
sure.
people that. But you know, the demographics of the region, do you find it's changed quite a bit? Like, I mean, at one time Dalhousie was
Young.
12,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, but
and
with industry-
population now, we're at 33.
Wow.
Now, the whole of Heron Bay makes up about 5,500.
Okay. So
But that doesn't include, now Heron Bay doesn't include Eel River Bar, or Eel River and Balmoral, does it?
No, that's in Boisjoli.
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 I don't
See,
know why-
we're from Dalhousie Junction,
Yeah.
Point Lenim, Dalhousie, Charlotte. We include like the word Darlington.
Right.
So they're all keeping their entities. So when the sign is put up, Heron Bay, welcome to the town of Heron Bay, well, we have underneath, if it's seaside, it's pronounced, so it's there. So everybody gets to keep within the town of Heron Bay. Yeah.
What about the age demographic? I was always curious. I know that at one time there was a sondage,
Yes.
a survey done where it
Right.
said that the population was a growing older population. So
Yes.
I think that's one of the problems we have in a lot of our northern communities,
It
right?
is, it is.
Yeah, because there's no industry to keep people, right?
No,
and
that's
people are so anti-industry.
Well, the industry was here and gone. One has to remember the mill was there for 75 years. That's what brought everybody in, from the outside in. And here we are today. So now we're on our knees and now we have to rise.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think that defeatist attitude that Dean passed on a little
Yes,
bit earlier, you know,
yes.
we're getting rid of that. I think,
Right,
you know, because
yeah.
there's places that have done it.
Yep, definitely,
Moncton,
definitely.
right? Remember everybody in Moncton when the CN
Yeah.
shops
Yeah,
closed?
absolutely.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, we're done. Moncton's
done.
Moncton's
That's
done.
right.
Survived.
Yes.
Miramichi.
Yes.
When the air base went down,
That's right.
you know, all of a sudden they survived.
Absolutely.
So I mean, there is life after.
Oh,
right?
yes, there is. There is. And there's a lot of new people moving in.
Good stuff.
Young couples. My two kids, one from Fredericton, one from Moncton, moved back. And
Nice.
They settled in with their kids. So we're happy campers. And yeah.
And it's really a nice bilingual town, too.
It
right?
is.
Same as
It
Bathurst,
is.
you know,
Yes.
bilingualism and people get along, and
Yep.
is very important, I think, to bring, you know, some industry or some jobs for the people, though, the young people that come back. Like, I mean,
Right.
you got two young kids.
Yes.
I mean, they
Now,
need jobs, right?
One of them is working for a company out west. So he's working from home.
Virtually.
So we're getting a lot of that.
Okay.
Which is great.
Working virtually, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of people, I mean, we talked about it, hit it on a little bit earlier, where, you know, people from the bigger cities are moving back to the smaller communities
And they
because,
are. Yes.
you know, they have that safety, that security,
Yeah.
less stress,
Yeah, yeah.
lower,
yeah.
you know, slower pace
They
of
want to
life.
bring their young children up in a place where it can be safer.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely,
That's,
absolutely.
that's a big
Well,
thing.
speaking of safer, I mean, do you have an arrangement with the RCMP to provide policing and that sort of stuff? How do you operate
Yes,
there?
yes, we do, and they provide. See now, there's only 26 officers, so sometimes you'll have some out sick. So you're not going to cover the complete blanket, but we do have. We're in talks.
Yeah, one of the things we did, Leigh, you know, we were fortunate in our First Nation communities, we were experiencing that same
Yes.
problem right
Yes.
across, right?
Yes.
So we've created a peacekeeping force in our communities,
Right.
but they don't uphold the law, they
Right.
don't arrest people, but they're eyes and ears.
Exactly.
So as you stated, if you have an RCMP officer that's one or two that are on duty covering that whole region,
Right.
they got the guy's phone number. So if something serious happens, they pick up the phone, they call them. The
Yes.
RCMP go there for not a waste of time, right? They're actually
Exactly.
know there's a reason. And
Exactly.
also they act as, I guess I would call them witnesses. So that if a crime is committed, they
Right.
don't get involved, but they've witnessed it.
Yes.
So now they can testify to the crime. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that type of model being taken place.
So long as it's funded, though.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
this is
that's the
it.
key. But
And
it's cheaper.
monies-
But it's cheaper when you think about what it
It
costs
would
for
be.
an RCMP
It-
officer.
it
right?
would be.
An RCMP officer is about 125 million,
Yeah, yeah.
125, 125,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
For that same amount, you could hire 4 people at 40,000.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true.
30,000, 3 people at 30,000, 40,000.
Yeah.
You know, and then you've got that security, and all they're
Right.
doing is providing, you know, during those hours when there's not any
Exactly.
police available. Night is usually when.
Well,
you know,
change has happened. Like in Dalhousie, I mean, you used to have a dedicated firefighting
Police force.
police forces.
police
we had
force,
our own
and-
police force.
But
Yeah, it was
also
great. It
you
was
had
great.
people that were hired to be firemen, right?
Yes.
I mean, you had a fire chief.
Right
who
there
was-
now, we have our fire department and Charlotte. They work together,
Amalgamated? No.
and we both have boats in case of need of anybody at sea falls in the water. Well, we have our safety right there, you know. So they do work together. Yeah.
Leigh, on the idea of amalgamating, you know, both communities, or I
Right.
guess more than one community.
Yes.
I mean, they had an entity. I mean, they had people that were elected that were.
Oh, definitely.
And so how did that representation go into Heron Bay with Dalhousie?
Well, the way that we worked it out, we did it in wards. We went back to the old system. So like where I was like half of Dalhousie going up to Dalhousie Junction. We were 3 councillors running in that department. Then the others went from down to Seaside. So there were 2 councillors there, and towards the middle, you had 5. So, and I broke it down, we're 6. And the
So,
mayor.
so how many do you have now at Heron?
We have 6 councillors.
6 councillors
And they all represent within that area.
and a mayor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you find now that, obviously the economy has been decimated because of the closures
Right.
of all the industry?
Right.
Do you find tourism has picked up quite a bit, Leigh?
Tourism is really picking up for the last 2 years because we were not being funded as Listiguj. Now we have everything in place. We're 12 members on the board, and we have Upigunjik sitting at the table. And we've been moving forward. Things are really going to the right.
Good stuff. That's good to hear, because you want to see communities and regions
Oh,
prosper in the
definitely.
north, right?
Definitely.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, with the River Bar and the relationship now that you guys are developing.
Yes.
We've sort of done the same thing here with Bathurst and Belle Bay and Belledune and even Green Point to the other side. So, developing that relationship's important, because we're all fighting for those same dollars, right?
The same dollars. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we believe, we're not myopic. We believe that, if economic development happens in the region,
Yes.
we all benefit,
Of
right?
course, of
In
course.
our new development, we'll see, clients coming over there, and the same token, by having that, you're also contributing to the city of Bathurst as well in the area.
right. We've been really pushing the Port of Belledune, obviously,
Yes.
because of, the green energy hub and what
Right.
we see as proponents coming in. And it's a deep water port, open
Yes.
year round. It
Yes.
has some benefits, right? But I
Right.
think those benefits are going to really, it'll go from Camelton right to Miramichi.
Right.
People will have those opportunities. I mean, we're talking about good paying jobs, high paying jobs.
Right.
But it's just that people sometimes don't have the patience, right?
Right.
And that's, you can attest to that. We
Oh,
hear it all the
yes.
time.
Oh,
But
yes.
people have to realize that, Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say. So it
Exactly.
takes time to
Yeah.
get those projects across the finish line, or get them to a point where we can develop.
And what's nice now with the Port of Belledune, the Port of Dalhousie, are now
In partnership,
connected
yes.
in partnership.
Yeah.
So that's a big hurdle that was kind of
Yeah.
settled.
Yeah, well, opportunity is there. It just takes somebody with a vision.
Exactly.
And thus, you just have to keep turning over rocks like we do. We're
Right.
out there knocking on doors all the time.
Yes.
Looking at different opportunities, right? And, there's a string of opportunities there that are out there, but, we're going to get a hit. We're at the cusp of seeing things happen.
Right.
But, we don't get discouraged. we
No,
just
no,
keep
no,
moving
no, we
forward.
certainly do not.
And you always have critics.
That's normal.
Yeah, for sure.
And to speak upon collaboration, which is a big thing our way,
Yeah.
with Umpigunjik, with Chief. I was speaking to him today, and he mentioned to me the new subdivision is going to have 21 more homes.
So good. Yeah.
And lots of infrastructure. They're going to have 14 tiny homes
Yeah.
to be constructed.
Well, just keep that thought, because we're gonna take a quick break here.
Sure.
And when we do come back, we're gonna see another side of Leigh. Stay tuned.
Well, welcome back to Mawio'mi Gathering Place, and with our guest Leigh Walsh, we're continuing our dialogue here. And Leigh, you had mentioned something about collaboration together. Could you give me a little bit of an expansion? I knew you were talking about the airport earlier,
Yes.
offline. So I'm just wondering, what were you discussing there?
Yeah, with the airport, recently we celebrated 60 years in business. And speaking of Gunjik, we have a member on the board with us. So the big importance in our end of the airport is the air ambulance, which we had 42 citizens from January on taking to go to Halifax, St. John, Quebec City.
So that's
So
42 from
Yes.
January to now.
To now.
That's
and we had 169 last year.
Yeah, that's very level of
So
activity.
That's a life saving that we need.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing to keep these airports alive.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And to speak upon collaboration.
Yes, go for it.
Here's where maybe we can with the Bathurst Airport. Maybe get funding, which is badly needed for airports. Like the instrument landing system, the ILS, especially in bad weather,
Yeah.
is where we can save time, money, and patience. If we can collaborate together, we can work together, maybe it's time. Why wait 20 years? Why
Yeah.
not do it now? You
Yeah.
know? So by collaborating in this sense of the word, look, both airports can look to the future with, you know.
So how would that work? You'd have ILS at both airports?
ILS, like we have the land, the property
Yeah.
to construct this system.
And so would that system serve the Bathurst Airport?
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
No, I think that's an important point, you know.
Yes.
And when you're looking at it, you know, from a perspective of what's needed, I mean, those are two airports that, you know, numbers always are things, right? And there's just as
Definitely.
many in the Bathurst region.
Yeah.
I think, when we talked to Jamie DeGrassi that time,
Yeah.
that you know, for the Bathurst Airport, they have about the same amount of
Right.
members where the air ambulance is
Yeah,
flying out.
absolutely.
So that's important, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's understated sometimes in the provincial side. They don't look at that, but saving
Yeah.
one life is a big difference.
Oh, big time, and that's
You know,
very
it's
important
so
on our,
important, so
very
important,
important.
Well,
Yes.
you know what, Leigh, I want to see the other side of you, that music side of you there. We got Rosanna here is going to bring your musical instrument onto your lap there, and we want to hear a nice bluegrass, is it?
Bluegrass.
Good
Well, we're
stuff,
looking forward
Leigh.
to this because I tell
This
you,
goes back to the 1950s. So it's an old tune, but a lively tune. There. Okay, here goes. What makes me forget all the other girls I met? Sweet little Miss Blue Eyes. So sweet you are to me that you really ought to be. Oh, sweet little Miss Blue Eyes. Well, little Miss Blue Eye looks so good. Well, I'm gonna dig into my neighborhood. I'm gonna make every girl in town jealous when she's around. Well, I'm walking around 'cause I'm glad that she's mine. I'm living in paradise. It's lucky for me that she really ought to be. Oh, sweet little Miss Blue Eyes. Oh, sweet little Miss Blue Eyes. Oh, sweet little Miss Blue Eyes.
Way to go, Leigh. You know, Leigh, that's
Awesome,
another
Leigh,
thing
awesome.
that I know that you do a lot of too, and it is an activity that people really enjoy, right?
Right.
Music.
Music.
You know, you have activity not only in the Legion, but also in the
old
old
age
club,
homes,
right?
yeah, we've seen
The
some
Old
of
Age
old
Club,
shows.
and also on Facebook. And we go to Nash Creek where we have Paul's studio.
Wow.
So we all go down there and we record. So all local musicians.
Nice.
And we put our music out on Facebook, and there's a lot of shut-ins that just love it.
You know what, Leigh? I mean, there is a solution to confrontation at town hall meetings. You just get out there and sing Little Miss Blue Eyes and whatever else you're going to sing. And there's no more arguing.
And no more. That's,
You know, Leigh, I think, you know, from our perspective, we look around the region and we look at the leaders that we have in the region, from
Right.
Dalhousie, Campbellton, right up to Miramichi.
Yes.
And we're in good hands.
Oh.
And, you know, and I know the councillors in Dalhousie and the mayor in Dalhousie, you know, and even us, we get our critics. We all have critics.
Well,
but
for
you know
sure.
what?
okay.
Come with a solution. I always tell people, don't only come with the problem, come with a solution. Because
Exactly.
you know what? We don't have all the answers.
That's
But
right.
I'm willing
That's
to
right.
listen, and I'm willing to listen. Let's work together. It's all about
Exactly.
making the area and making the region prosperous
You got her.
for the benefit of everybody.
Well, Leigh, you
That's
brought
right.
your little red book there. Did you manage to go through it?
Not all. Maybe we can come for another segment.
Well, you're on.
You know
We
what?
can-
We're going to bring you back
We're
for
gonna
sure.
bring you
Leigh,
back
and
again.
maybe we'll bring
Another
the-
song.
And we'll bring, yeah,
Well,
and
you'll
we'll
have
bring the
another
mayor, you know,
song,
and we'll
too.
bring the mayor up too. You know, and
Sure.
so it's nice to talk
Yes.
and talk some politics and talk
Okay,
about
sure.
the problems
Why
we
don't
have.
you sing a song? Sing us out, Leigh.
Well, I think I just sang my song. I'm good.
You can't sing another one?
Not another one.
Can't sing us out. Eh? Okay, that's good.
We'll save that for the next round.
Yeah. But
We're just trying to add a little bit of
Oh, I
flavor to
understand.
the
I
singing us
understand.
on the way out.
I understand.
Well, Leigh, I mean, you know, as Terry mentioned, I mean, you know, we think that leadership is where it's at.
Exactly.
And, you know, one of the things that I always say, you know, and I keep saying this all together, all the time, leadership is the submission to duty, not the elevation to power.
Exactly.
You know, you're there to serve the people, make sure that everything that you want to see as a vision can move forward,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
And of course, the challenge for most people in leadership is that you have to have sign-on to your vision, right?
That's right.
People have to believe in your vision. It just can't be your vision.
Exactly.
You've
got
got
to be
sell
their
it.
vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where collaboration comes in.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're 100% right. You know,
Yeah.
and I think from a regional perspective, everybody gets that. I think we all know that we've had our hard times up here.
That's
We've
right.
lost a lot of industry. You know, the
Yes.
forestry industry is only so much, right? The
Yeah.
pulp and paper mill time is gone.
That's
You
right.
know, and that was a big staple of all of New Brunswick, and you know, we've lost that.
Yeah, we have, but you know, I think, you know, so long as there's hope and the leadership is there to want to bring about change, I think, you know, that's the important part. I mean, in our particular case, I mean, in my particular case, you know, the creator's got the door open, but I said I got too much to do here. Wait, you know.
Exactly.
So, Leigh, I mean, it's just been great having you, bro. It's
Thank
been a
you.
great program, right?
Oh, it's been awesome, and thank you so much, Leigh, and hopefully we'll have you back for sure.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for the next show.
Yalaling.
Without